Imagine for a moment that you are sitting quietly in your room and a song you haven't heard in years suddenly plays. Instantly, you're transported back to a memory from childhood. The smell of your mother's cooking, the sound of your father's voice, the laughter of siblings. That moment isn't just nostalgia, it's an emotional echo. Childhood has this way of imprinting itself onto us, not only in the form of memories, but in deep emotional imprints that continue to shape the way we see ourselves and the world. When we talk about the echoes of childhood, we're talking about the subtle ways in which experiences from years ago still inform how we react, how we trust, how we love, and even how we dream. It's not always about major events. Sometimes it's the small, repetitive patterns, how your caregivers responded to your needs, how safe you felt in your home, how freely you were allowed to express yourself. Those patterns become the architecture of your inner world, and they follow you long after childhood ends. One of the most powerful examples is how children learn to regulate emotions. If a child grows up in a home where anger is explosive, they may internalize fear and learn to suppress their own feelings just to keep the peace. As an adult, this person may struggle with speaking up, constantly fearing conflict, even when it's safe to express disagreement. On the other hand, if a child's emotions are acknowledged and comforted, they may grow into someone who is resilient, able to self-soothe, and unafraid of emotional intensity. Sometimes, the echoes show up in relationships. A child who felt abandoned or neglected often carries an invisible script into adulthood. People I love might leave me, and so they might cling too tightly to partners, or sabotage relationships out of fear, or avoid intimacy altogether. Another child who grew up with consistency and warmth might carry the opposite script. I am safe, and people can be trusted. And that belief forms the foundation of healthier bonds. What's important to recognize here is that none of us had perfect childhoods. Even the most loving parents are still human. The echoes we carry aren't about blame, they're about awareness. They're about recognizing that the ways we respond to life today often have their origins in those earlier years. Awareness gives us the power to change the script, to soften the echoes that hurt, and to amplify the ones that help us grow. Let's take an example many people can relate to. Imagine a child who grew up hearing things like, "Don't cry, be strong," or "Stop being so sensitive." On the surface, it might seem harmless. Parents often say these things with good intentions. But the echo left behind is this: my emotions are not acceptable. If I express them, I'm weak. That echo follows the child into adulthood. They may become someone who hides their struggles, puts on a brave face, and feels deep shame whenever they feel vulnerable. And yet, because they don't allow themselves to express pain, they may also feel deeply disconnected from others, isolated in their silence. The echoes of childhood can also show up in our ambitions and our sense of self-worth. A child who grew up constantly criticized may become an adult who is endlessly chasing achievement, trying to prove their worth through external success. No matter how much they achieve, the echo in the background whispers, "You're still not enough." On the other hand, a child who was encouraged and celebrated may carry the echo of, "I am capable, and my worth is not conditional." That person may still work hard, but their drive comes from inspiration rather than insecurity. But here's the remarkable truth. These echoes are not fixed. They're not life sentences. Just as the sound of an echo can fade, the emotional echoes of childhood can soften when we begin to recognize them. Healing begins with listening. Instead of pushing away those patterns or pretending they don't exist, we pause and ask ourselves, what is this really about? Where did this come from? When you notice you're afraid to speak up, you might trace that back to the echo of being silenced as a child. When you find yourself chasing approval endlessly, you might trace that back to the echo of criticism in your early years. When you catch yourself fearing abandonment, you might see the echo of neglect. The act of recognizing these echoes gives you the chance to rewrite them. Rewriting doesn't mean erasing the past. It means creating new experiences that speak louder than the old echoes. If the echo is, "I am not safe to express myself," then the practice becomes expressing yourself anyway, in small, safe ways, until a new echo begins. I can speak, and the world doesn't fall apart. If the echo is, I am not enough, then the work is to build self-compassion, to affirm your worth even when you fall short, until a new echo grows. I am worthy just as I am. Understanding the echoes of childhood is not about dwelling on the past. It's about freeing ourselves in the present. When we see how those old patterns show up today, we stop being controlled by them. We begin to respond consciously rather than react automatically. This is how we grow emotionally, not by cutting off our roots, but by understanding them, tending to them, and choosing how we want our tree to grow now. Think about this for yourself. What echoes do you notice in your life? Do you hear the whisper of criticism whenever you try something new? Do you feel the urge to hide your feelings when things get hard? Or do you feel a quiet strength that reminds you that you are loved, no matter what? By naming these echoes, you bring them into awareness. And awareness is the first step toward transformation. The truth is, no one escapes childhood unmarked. We all carry echoes, some painful, some beautiful. The key is learning how to listen to them with compassion, and then deciding which ones to carry forward and which ones to gently let fade. This is the work of emotional maturity. It's how we move from living unconsciously in old patterns to creating new ones that serve us better. Childhood echoes shape us, but they don't define us forever. With awareness, compassion, and courage, you can transform those echoes into something new. You can choose to build lives that are not only free from old pain, but also rich with self-acceptance, love, and inner peace. And if this message resonates with you, I'd love for you to join this journey. Subscribe to this channel so we can create a community of people who are reflecting deeply, growing consciously, and supporting one another. Because when it comes to the echoes of childhood and the journey of healing, none of us should have to walk alone.